Picture this. I showed up at my daughter's wedding, the same daughter I had poured my entire life into raising, and she looked straight at me and said, flat and distant, "Dad, I am sorry, but you were not invited. You need to leave." I did not argue. I turned around and walked away, my chest hollowed out by a betrayal I never imagined she was capable of. What I did not know then was that within 2 hours, her flawless, picture-perfect wedding would unravel into absolute chaos. It was not revenge. It was fairness catching up. The champagne flute slipped from my hand before I even realized my fingers had gone numb. It shattered against the polished stone floor, crystal fragments skittering outward like sparks from a fire. Each shard reflected the shock spreading across my daughter's face. "Dad, why are you here?" Sarah's voice sliced through the low hum of polite conversation. Her wedding gown, the one I had personally paid $14,000 for, brushed against the floor as she stepped backward. "You were not supposed to come." I stood at the entrance to the ballroom, frozen in place, still holding the gift box I had wrapped myself the night before. Imported white peonies filled the room, their sweet scent mixing with designer perfume and silent judgment. A massive chandelier overhead threw prismatic light across walls that had cost me nearly a quarter of my annual profits just to rent for one afternoon. "It is your wedding day," I said, my voice coming out quieter than I meant it to. "I wanted to congratulate you, both of you." Her fiancé, Daniel, stepped into place beside her. His tuxedo fit him like it had been tailored specifically to make him look superior, and his smile was sharp, calculated. "Mr. Reynolds, I believe there has been some confusion." "What confusion?" I asked, looking back and forth between them, desperately searching Sarah's face for the child who used to beg me to push her higher on the backyard swing. Sarah flicked her eyes toward the guests gathered nearby. Women draped in custom gowns whispered behind raised champagne glasses. Men in suits that probably cost more than my first truck pretended to focus on the decor while missing nothing. "This is a private family event," she said finally, her tone tight, strained. "Immediate family only." The words landed like ice dumped down my spine. 29 years of late-night homework help, school performances, and dance competitions collapsed into that single sentence. 29 years of choosing her college savings over my own future, her comfort over mine. "I paid for this wedding, Sarah," I said evenly. "Every arrangement, every meal, the dress you are wearing right now." Daniel's expression hardened. "Money does not buy refinement, sir." "He is right," Sarah murmured, refusing to look at me. "This is not about money. It is about fitting in. You do not understand the people who are here. I understood perfectly. The men who poured concrete and framed houses were never invited to the parties held inside them. The father who sacrificed everything so his daughter could enter this world had already fulfilled his purpose." Around us, the room went quiet. A photographer lowered his camera mid-shot. The string quartet continued playing, blissfully unaware that a family was breaking apart beneath their music. "I understand," I said. I placed the gift box gently on a nearby table between untouched champagne glasses and cascading orchids. "I would never want to embarrass you." "Dad, please," she said softly. "Do not make this more difficult than it already is." I studied her face, committing it to memory. The green eyes she inherited from her mother, now hard and unfamiliar. The smile I had worked extra shifts to afford braces for turned away from me. "You are right," I said quietly. "I do not belong here." The walk to the exit felt endless. High heels clicked behind me as murmured conversations resumed. Someone laughed, sharp and forced. My work boots, shined carefully for the occasion, felt out of place against the flawless floor. When I stepped outside, the cool early spring air filled my lungs and felt like relief. The parking lot was packed with luxury cars I would never own. My old pickup sat alone at the far edge, exactly where it fit in their world. I pulled out my phone, my hand steady despite everything. 26 years of building a company from the ground up had taught me patience. 26 years of loving a daughter who no longer wanted me had taught me something else entirely. The screen lit up with missed calls from my attorney about a zoning issue. I ignored them and scrolled to a different contact. One I had not called in a long time, but suddenly needed. My thumb paused over the name, Regional Trust Bank, Commercial Accounts. Inside that ballroom, my daughter was celebrating a future that did not include me. Out here, I was about to start one that did not include her. The call connected after a single ring. Behind me, the heavy doors closed with the finality of a vault locking shut. The music faded into nothing as I crossed the pavement toward my truck, every step measured, deliberate. The gift box remained on the table inside, abandoned like everything else I had given away. A cold March wind carried the smell of rain. Dark clouds gathered over the venue's stone towers, casting long shadows across cars worth more than most homes. Gravel crunched beneath my boots as I reached the truck, keys already waiting in my palm. Inside the cab, the silence wrapped around me, solid and protective. The dashboard clock read 4:12 p.m. There was still time before the banks closed for the weekend. Time enough to make several decisions that would change everything. I scrolled through my contacts until I found exactly what I was looking for. The contact name glowed on my screen: Regional Trust Bank, commercial accounts. I paused for exactly 3 seconds before pressing the call button. Regional Trust Bank, this is Patricia speaking. How may I assist you today? Patricia, my name is James Reynolds, business account ending in 7794512. I need to place immediate stop payments on several previously authorized transactions. Certainly, Mr. Reynolds. Let me access your account. I will need to verify your social security number and your mother's maiden name. Routine safeguards. I provided the information without hesitation, my eyes drifting toward the venue's front entrance. Guests continued to arrive, women wrapped in silk and satin, men straightening cufflinks that probably cost more than my first year in business. None of them had any idea what was already in motion. Thank you for verifying, Patricia said. I am seeing multiple large transactions processed today. Which charges would you like to stop? All wedding-related payments, I replied. Venue rental, catering services, floral design, photography, and live music. I listed them calmly, like checking items off a work order. These changes need to take effect immediately. There was a brief pause. Sir, these are substantial amounts. Are you certain you want to halt all associated payments? I am completely certain. There has been a change in circumstances. Keys clicked rapidly on her end. For transactions exceeding $10,000, I will need the authorization codes. I recited each one from memory. Years of running a construction company had trained my brain to retain every critical number, every approval, every clause that mattered. All stop payments are now active, she said. Confirmation numbers are being generated. Is there anything else I can assist you with today? That covers the banking portion. Thank you, Patricia. The next call went through to the most exclusive catering firm in the region, the same company Sarah had demanded, despite their outrageous pricing. Elegant Affairs, Aura Catering. This is Marcus. Marcus, this is James Reynolds. I am calling regarding the reception currently taking place for the Anderson wedding. Oh yes, Mr. Reynolds, he said cheerfully. Everything is running perfectly. Guests are already complimenting the hors d'oeuvres. I am afraid there has been a financial issue, I replied evenly. Payment authorization has been revoked. You may want to secure your equipment and any remaining food immediately. The silence on the line stretched uncomfortably. I am sorry, Marcus said slowly. Can you clarify what you mean? The bank has formally stopped payment on your contract, effective as of this moment. I strongly suggest you protect your assets. But we are in the middle of service, he protested. The main course has not even been served yet. That is unfortunate timing, I said, keeping my tone professional. You may want to speak with the wedding party about alternate payment arrangements. The line went dead. Marcus was a smart businessman. He did not waste time arguing. The florist picked up on the second ring. Evergreen Floral Studio, this is Susan. Susan, this is James Reynolds regarding the Anderson wedding arrangements. Oh, Mr. Reynolds, she said brightly. The flowers look absolutely stunning. The bride was thrilled with the orchids. There is a payment issue, I said. The bank authorization has been canceled. You will need to retrieve your arrangements if you intend to recover any value. Retrieve them? She asked, startled. But they are integrated throughout the entire venue. Business is business, Susan. I recommend acting quickly. After that came 3 more calls. The photography company, the string quartet, even the linen rental service. Each conversation followed the same progression. Polite professionalism, followed by disbelief, then urgent concern, and finally hurried disconnects as vendors moved to protect themselves. When the final call ended, the dashboard clock read 4:15 p.m. Through my windshield, I watched a white catering truck pull up to the service entrance, Marcus, most likely, arriving to salvage whatever he could before things escalated. Inside the ballroom, Sarah was probably still greeting guests, unaware that the foundation beneath her perfect day was already cracking. Daniel was likely holding court with his father's associates, projecting confidence and superiority, certain he stood above people like me. Neither of them understood what their choices had truly cost. I started the engine and eased out of the parking space, driving slowly past the venue's grand entrance. Through the tall windows, I caught brief snapshots of the reception in full swing, crystal glasses raised in toasts, polished floors reflecting movement and light. All of it temporary. My phone vibrated in my hand. Sarah's name lit up the screen. I did not answer. The clock ticked over to 4:20 p.m. just as the first delivery truck arrived at the service entrance. Evergreen Floral Studio was written in elegant lettering along the side. Susan sat behind the wheel, two assistants beside her. They unloaded empty containers with brisk, efficient movements. Inside the venue, the cocktail hour continued uninterrupted. Chandeliers sparkled, guests laughed. Sarah's imported orchids still framed every corner of the room. Daniel gestured animatedly to a group of men in expensive suits, no doubt explaining his latest venture. Neither the bride nor the groom noticed the florist team slipping through the side doors. Sarah stood near the main entrance, glowing in layers of silk and pearls that had cost me more than most people's yearly vacations. She smiled effortlessly as relatives lined up to congratulate her, her laughter floating across the ballroom, light and carefree. It was the sound of someone who believed nothing could touch her. That sound would not last much longer. Susan stepped through the ballroom doors, carrying two large plastic storage bins, her movements deliberate and focused. Two assistants followed closely behind her. Without hesitation, she headed straight for the massive floral display near the ceremonial platform, while her team began closing in on the surrounding arrangements. Heads turned, conversations faltered, celebration gave way to confusion as flowers were lifted from their carefully designed places. "Excuse me," Sarah said, approaching with the polished smile of someone used to giving instructions and being obeyed. "We are in the middle of our reception. Whatever you need can wait until later." Susan paused and straightened, white orchids bundled in her arms. "Ma'am, my name is Susan, from Evergreen Floral Studio. Payment authorization for these arrangements was canceled approximately 40 minutes ago. I am here to retrieve our property." Sarah's smile wavered, but did not disappear entirely. "That is not possible. Everything was paid for weeks in advance." "The account holder, James Reynolds, contacted us directly," Susan replied calmly, continuing her work. "All payments were stopped. I have written authorization to recover every arrangement." The color drained from Sarah's face. Around them, the room fell silent. Daniel moved quickly across the floor, his confusion hardening into anger with every step. "What is going on here?" he demanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who was not used to resistance. "Unpaid merchandise recovery," Susan said evenly. "We are acting within the terms of our contract." One assistant began wrapping the ceremonial display in protective plastic. "This is unacceptable," Daniel snapped, his face flushing. "Get your manager on the phone right now." "I am the manager," Susan replied without raising her voice. "And our agreement clearly states that canceled payments immediately void service obligations." She nodded to her team, who began removing centerpieces from guest tables. Crystal glasses sat untouched as guests watched in stunned silence. Outside, an elegant affairs catering truck pulled up to the service entrance. Susan's team continued their systematic removal as Marcus stepped inside with 3 staff members. There was no attempt at subtlety. This was business. Sarah watched orchids vanish into containers, her carefully practiced composure cracking piece by piece. "There has to be a mistake," she said, her voice thinning. "My father would not, he could not." "Ma'am, we need to suspend food service immediately," Marcus said, clipboard in hand. "Payment authorization was revoked at 4:15. We are required to secure our equipment and remaining inventory." Daniel stepped in front of him, his voice rising. "This is my wedding reception. You cannot just shut everything down in the middle of it." "Sir, we absolutely can," Marcus replied. "And we must. Once payment is canceled, asset protection becomes mandatory." He signaled his crew. Serving stations were covered with white cloths. Trays disappeared. Guests shifted uncomfortably, champagne flutes frozen in midair. Conversations dissolved into hushed speculation. A phone rang somewhere in the crowd, the sound sharp and out of place. The string quartet fell silent when their equipment coordinator appeared. Microphones were disconnected, speakers powered down. Even the ambient lighting dimmed as the sound technician removed his console. Sarah stood at the center of her unraveling reception, her immaculate gown untouched by the chaos swirling around her. "This cannot be happening," she whispered. "Not today, not like this." "What kind of financial arrangement did your family make?" Daniel asked, his anger turning inward now, suspicion creeping into his voice. "I do not know," she said, panic finally breaking through. Everything was supposed to be handled. The venue coordinator approached, phone pressed tightly to her ear. She lowered it and spoke with visible discomfort. "Mrs. Anderson, I have just spoken with our accounting department. Every payment for today's event originated from a single business account belonging to James Reynolds. That account holder has revoked authorization for all transactions." Sarah's composure shattered completely. For the first time, she was no longer the bride hosting a flawless event. She was a daughter realizing, far too late, the scale of what her father had given her, and what it had cost him. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone and scrolled to a familiar number. Out in the parking lot, my phone began to ring. It buzzed against the dashboard, her name lighting up the screen. Through the windshield, I could see her silhouette framed in the venue doorway, phone pressed to her ear, her posture rigid with desperation. I did not answer, not yet. 26 years of loving that girl had led to this moment. 26 years of believing sacrifice built gratitude instead of entitlement. She was 3 years old when her mother died. Cancer took Linda in 6 merciless months, leaving me alone with a toddler who asked for her mother every morning and every night. I could have remarried quickly. I could have found someone else to help raise her. Instead, I chose to become everything Sarah needed on my own. "Daddy, will you read me one more story?" she asked when she was 5, curled against my chest in pink pajamas, her hair still damp from a bath. I had already read 3 books that night and had an early morning meeting scheduled with potential investors. Still, her green eyes, her mother's eyes, looked up at me with complete trust. "Of course, sweetheart," I told her. "Daddy always has time for you." That sentence became the foundation of my life. James Reynolds always had time for Sarah, and money, and patience, and whatever else she needed to feel happy and safe. When she turned 8, private school tuition swallowed nearly half of my quarterly profits. I told myself it was worth it as I signed checks that meant postponing business expansion and tightening my own budget. "The best education money can buy," I repeated like a promise. When I told her she would be attending Riverside Academy, she threw her arms around my neck. "Thank you, Daddy. I will study really hard and make you proud." She kept that promise. Straight A's through elementary school. School plays where I sat in the front row, my hands rough from construction work, clapping louder than anyone else in the room. After every performance, she would run straight to me, glowing. "Did you see me remember all my lines?" she asked once. "I was thinking about you the whole time." Things shifted when she reached high school. Riverside Academy meant wealthy classmates with trust funds, vacation homes, and parents who never worried about money. Sarah began to notice the differences. Her 16th birthday party cost more than some people's cars. A luxury sedan in the driveway, professional catering, designer decorations. "Everyone else got BMWs, Dad," she said flatly. "This Honda is kind of embarrassing." That was in 2016, the first moment money stopped being appreciated and started being expected. I should have recognized it as a warning. College expenses nearly derailed the business expansion I had spent years planning. Northwestern University was her dream school, and the cost went far beyond tuition. Sorority dues, spring break trips to Mexico, study abroad programs in Europe. Every semester brought new requests. "Dad, I need $3,000 for the business fraternity trip," she said once. "It is essential for networking." Phone calls slowly turned into transactions. Visits home dwindled to holidays. When she did call, the conversation lasted just long enough to explain what she needed and how quickly the money had to be transferred. Graduate school was when Daniel entered her life. Old money, family connections, generational wealth, everything I could not give her, no matter how many years I worked myself into exhaustion. She began commenting on my appearance during family gatherings. "Could you wear something other than those work boots when you come over?" she asked once. "Daniel's friends will be there." The girl who once thanked me for bedtime stories was now ashamed of the man who provided everything she had ever asked for. Success in construction meant nothing to her new social circle. Building the company that funded her lifestyle somehow made me unsuitable for it. Last Christmas, she introduced me to Daniel's parents with a smile and said, "This is my father. He owns a small business." Small business. 26 years of building Reynolds Construction from nothing. 60 employees. Enough revenue to support the lifestyle she lived without question. Reduced to a phrase that made me sound insignificant. "Dad, we need to talk about wedding funding," she said later. "Daniel's family has certain expectations for the ceremony. Not thank you, not gratitude, just expectations. As if my life's work existed solely to meet social standards I was never meant to belong to. Wedding planning meetings felt like corporate negotiations. Sarah arrived with spreadsheets. Daniel talked about cost efficiency. Neither acknowledged that every line item represented months of my labor. Flowers flown in from South America. Champagne priced higher per bottle than my workers earned in a day. A wedding dress worth more than many people's monthly rent. "This is not about money," Sarah said. "It is about quality. Daniel's family understands quality. Quality my money could purchase, but my presence apparently ruined. The very success that enabled their dream wedding made me too ordinary to attend it." My phone buzzed again, Sarah's third call in 5 minutes. Through the tall venue windows, I could see her pacing back and forth, her wedding dress dragging behind her like a white flag. 26 years of sacrifice had led here, not to a grateful daughter celebrating her father, but to a frantic woman finally realizing what she had thrown away. The irony was almost poetic. The love that spoiled her was now teaching her what it was worth. I reached for my phone, deciding exactly when to answer. The engine hummed softly as I pulled out of the parking lot, her frantic silhouette shrinking in my rearview mirror. Her screen glowed like a signal fire in the gathering dusk as she called again, for the 7th time in 10 minutes. Each ring felt intentional, measured. On my schedule, not hers. The drive home took 20 minutes through Saturday evening traffic. 20 minutes of watching my phone light up with her name, every call more urgent than the last. By the time I pulled into my driveway, she had left 4 voicemails. I sat alone in my garage and listened to every one of them. I shut off the engine as the garage door lowered behind me, sealing the space like a stage curtain, closing on the first act of the day. I opened my voicemail. Message 1. "Dad, something is wrong with the payments. There has been a mistake. Call me back right now." Message 2. "This is not funny anymore. Vendors are packing up. Everyone is staring at us. Please call me." Message 3. "Dad, I do not understand what is happening. Daniel's family is asking questions I cannot answer." Message 4. Her voice broke completely. "I need you. Please answer. Please." As the 4th message ended, my phone rang again. Her name lit up the screen, paired with a photo from her college graduation, the last time she hugged me without asking for money first. I answered on the 5th ring. "Hello, Sarah." "Dad, finally," she said, panic pouring out of every word. "What did you do? How could you ruin my wedding?" Good. The fear was real now. Panic meant reality had arrived. Reality was the beginning of understanding. "I did not ruin anything," I replied calmly. "I simply stopped paying." "You cannot just stop," she said, her voice shaking. "This is my wedding day. There are dozens of people here asking why the flowers disappeared and why dinner service stopped." "Where are you calling from?" "The hotel," she said. "We had to leave. The venue coordinator said the outstanding balances had to be settled before we could stay." So, they had been escorted out. That explained the hollow echo in her voice, the absence of music and celebration. "Sarah, listen carefully," I said. "When was the last time you thanked me for anything?" "What?" she snapped. "This is not the time for lectures. I need you to call the vendors and fix this. Answer the question. When was the last time you genuinely thanked me for supporting your life financially?" Silence. In the background, I could hear Daniel's voice, sharp and irritated. I cannot recall specific moments," she said finally. "But I have always been grateful. You know that." "No," I said evenly. "What I know is that earlier today, you told me I did not belong at your wedding. A wedding I paid for entirely. I did not mean it that way, she rushed. I was stressed, wedding nerves. Her voice softened, slipping into the tone she perfected in college whenever she needed money. Dad, please, I will make this right. We can talk about everything later, but right now, I need you to authorize the payment so we can salvage what is left. What exactly is left? The cake is still here. A few guests are still here. The photographer is waiting to see if we can work something out. And how do you intend to pay for any of that? Another pause, longer this time. I thought you would handle it, she admitted quietly. You always do. That is true, I said. I always have. Do you have any idea how much I have spent on you over the past 26 years? Dad, please do not make me guess numbers right now. Everything is falling apart. Take a guess, roughly. I do not know, she said hesitantly. Maybe $50,000? I almost laughed. That would not have covered a single year at Northwestern. Sarah, I have spent more than $300,000 on your education, housing, transportation, and lifestyle since your mother died. That does not include what I spent today. The line went quiet except for the sound of her breathing. 300, that cannot be right. It is a conservative figure, I said. I have documentation for every dollar. Why are you telling me this now? Because you never asked, I replied. In 26 years, you never once questioned the cost of your life or the burden it placed on me. Burden? She said sharply. I am your daughter. Yes, I said, and I loved you enough to sacrifice everything for your happiness. The question is, what have you ever sacrificed for mine? Daniel's voice rose in the background. She covered the phone briefly, their argument muffled but intense. Dad, she said when she returned, her voice brittle. Daniel's family is furious. They are asking how we plan to pay for all of this. That is a matter between you and your husband. But I do not have that kind of money, she said. You know I do not. Then it may be time you learn how to earn it. The silence that followed stretched nearly half a minute. What do you want from me? She finally asked. I want you to understand what you threw away today when you dismissed the man who made your entire lifestyle possible. I understand now, she said quickly. I was wrong. Can we fix this? We will see, I replied. I am reviewing our entire financial relationship. There will be documentation. We will discuss this properly. When? When I decide I'm ready. I ended the call and powered down my phone. Through the kitchen window, the lights of the city began to glow in the distance. Somewhere out there, Sarah was facing her first night without my financial safety net. The lesson had finally begun. In my home office, the warm glow of a desk lamp cast long shadows across decades of meticulous records. Filing cabinets lined the wall like silent guardians, holding details she had never cared to ask about. Tonight, those records would finally matter. Steam curled up from my coffee mug as I sat down at my desk and pulled open the first filing drawer. A handwritten label stared back at me. Sarah, Education, 1999 to 2025. Behind me, the house settled into its familiar evening silence. The ticking clock, the low hum of the refrigerator, the quiet I had earned after decades of work. My mind, however, was fully awake, running with the same disciplined focus that had taken Reynolds Construction from a one-truck operation to a company employing 60 people. This was not retaliation. This was an audit. I opened the first folder. Riverside Academy. 12 years of private education, every semester carefully documented, tuition statements, bank transfers, annual reports. In 2009, tuition sat at $8,000 per year. By the time she graduated, it had climbed to nearly $12,000 annually. I did the math slowly, deliberately. $126,000. That was just elementary school and high school. I opened a fresh spreadsheet on my computer. My fingers moved automatically, muscle memory from years of estimating jobs and managing payroll. Column headers appeared one by one. Date, description, amount, category, running total. 26 years of fatherhood reduced to cells, formulas, and hard numbers. The Northwestern University folder came next. It was thicker than the rest, swollen with contracts and receipts. Tuition statements alone filled half the folder. $52,000 per year, 4 years. Room and board added another $15,000 annually. Then came the extras. Spring break in Mexico during her junior year, $3,500. A summer study program in Italy during her brief art history phase, $8,200. Essential for my education, Dad, she had said about Italy. This is how people in my program make connections. Page by page, receipt by receipt, the numbers climbed. Northwestern total, $284,000. 4 years of college had cost more than many people earned in the half a decade. Next folder, transportation. The pattern was unmistakable. Her first car at 16, a reliable Honda Civic, $18,000. 6 months later, complaints. Everyone else drives BMWs. Second car at 19, BMW 3 Series, $28,000. Third vehicle at 25, BMW X3, because Daniel's friends all drove luxury SUVs. Each purchase came with insurance premiums, maintenance, registration fees, expenses she never saw, costs absorbed quietly because that was what fathers did. My phone vibrated on the desk. Sarah's name flashed across the screen. I ignored it and added another line to the spreadsheet. Phone, iPhone Pro Max, 1,000 technology. The living expenses folder hit hardest. A postgraduate apartment in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood. $2,800 a month, 3 years. Credit card payments when her spending exceeded the already generous allowance I sent, averaging $1,100 a month for 2 years. Designer clothing, spa treatments, destination trips with friends whose parents funded identical lifestyles. The totals grew steadily, relentlessly. Education, $10,000, transportation, $75,000, housing support, $125,000, personal expenses, $180,000 wedding costs, $147,000. I leaned back as the calculator displayed the final figure, $937,000, nearly $1 million, spent slowly, quietly, over more than 2 decades, each expense reasonable on its own. Private school was an investment. College opened doors. Reliable transportation meant safety. Nice clothes built confidence. A wedding celebrated love. But together, the pattern told the truth. Sarah had never contributed a single dollar to her own support. She had never held a job longer than 6 months. She had never once asked what anything cost. And she had almost never said thank you. I opened the photo albums I had kept since she was small. Sarah at 8 years old, missing 2 front teeth, glowing after her first school play. Thank you for coming, Daddy. Did you hear how loud everyone clapped? Sarah at 12, clutching a spelling bee trophy. I thought about you when I got nervous, and it helped me remember the words. When had that gratitude disappeared? When had I stopped being a father in her eyes and become nothing more than a funding source? My phone rang again. 14 missed calls since our last conversation. This time, she left a voicemail. Dad, please answer. I have been thinking about what you said. I know I have not been grateful enough. I know I took you for granted. Daniel's family is threatening to leave if we cannot explain the finances. I need to know what you want from me. What I wanted was 26 years of appreciation that would never arrive. What I needed was certainty that she finally understood the value of what she had dismissed so easily. I printed the spreadsheet summary and began organizing the supporting documents into thick manila folders. Education, transportation, housing, personal expenses, wedding costs. Each folder was heavy with proof. Love translated into numbers, sacrifice measured in bank transfers. Tomorrow would bring conversations Sarah was not prepared for. Discussions about responsibility, accountability, the real cost of entitlement. Tonight was for preparation. The documents covered my desk like evidence in a courtroom. Nearly $1 million provided without question, gratitude, or acknowledgement. Sarah had lived like royalty while treating her benefactor like hired labor. That arrangement was coming to an end. My phone buzzed again with her name. I reached for it, then stopped. Not yet. I wanted her to sit with it a little longer. I wanted her to feel what helplessness actually felt like, to experience the anxiety of financial dependence without the guarantee that someone would always step in to save her. The lesson was not finished. It would resume in the morning. Sunday arrived with sharp March air and the kind of mental clarity that only comes after thorough preparation. My briefcase rested by the front door, heavy with 26 years of records. Every statement, every receipt, every transfer. Richards and Associates had agreed to an emergency consultation at 9 o'clock sharp, a professional courtesy between people who understood that some matters could not wait until Monday. The law office felt appropriately solemn. Dark mahogany panels lined the walls. Shelves of legal volumes stood in orderly rows. Framed certificates documented decades of successful litigation and financial recovery. Margaret Richards met me in the conference room herself. Her silver hair was immaculate. Her tailored suit radiated calm authority. "Mr. Reynolds," she said as we shook hands, "I reviewed the materials you sent last night. Your record-keeping is exceptional." She spread my folders across the polished table, flipping through financial summaries with the efficiency of someone who had seen every kind of dispute imaginable. Each page represented months of Sarah's lifestyle, funded quietly, unquestioningly, by me. "The total exposure is just under $1 million over 26 years, she said. "That is substantial, even by our firm's standards." "I want this handled cleanly," I replied, settling into the leather chair across from her. "No emotion, no drama, just business. She needs to understand the financial reality of what she has treated as entitlement." Margaret nodded and made notes on a yellow legal pad. "The documentation supports multiple approaches," she said. "We can pursue reclassification of long-term financial support as recoverable advances, or formalize the total as a consolidated promissory obligation. Given the escalating pattern and absence of reciprocal responsibility, you have strong standing." She outlined the strategy with clinical precision: a formal demand letter, a complete accounting of expenditures with supporting documentation, a 30-day deadline for response, clear notice of legal consequences for non-compliance. "This reframes the situation from a family disagreement into a financial matter," she explained. "That often brings clarity very quickly." By 11 o'clock, the documents were finalized. Official letterhead, precise legal language, serious implications. The demand was straightforward: $937,000 due within 30 days, or formal recovery proceedings would begin. "We will arrange courier delivery this afternoon," Margaret said. "Signature required. That creates a verifiable record of receipt." I drove home with copies of everything, satisfaction tempered by a quiet sadness that things had come to this. Sarah had created this outcome over years of unchecked entitlement. I was simply introducing consequences she had never been forced to face. At exactly 2:15 p.m., my phone rang. The courier service confirmed delivery to the Spokane Grand Hotel, room 1247, signed for by Sarah Reynolds Anderson. The process had officially begun. I imagined the moment clearly: hotel staff calling her room about a legal delivery, her assuming it was more vendor paperwork, Daniel stepping in with confident irritation, breaking the seal without concern, then reading, confusion first, then disbelief, then slow, dawning comprehension. At 2:47 p.m., my phone began ringing again. Her name flashed across the screen over and over. I let each call go to voicemail. The messages stacked quickly. Message 1: "Dad, what is this legal letter? This cannot be serious." Message 2: $900,000? That is impossible. You never said these were loans. Message 3: "Please call me. Daniel's family is asking questions I cannot answer." Message 4: Her voice cracked. "I do not understand how everything fell apart so fast." At the Grand Hotel, Sarah and Daniel were discovering what accountability looked like when backed by legal authority. 26 years of unexamined generosity had been documented, quantified, and converted into enforceable obligation. The wedding collapse had only been the opening scene. This was the main act. Margaret had explained it plainly before I left. Civil recovery follows procedure. They will need legal representation to respond properly. That requires resources they do not have, to contest a debt they cannot repay. The calls continued throughout the afternoon. 15 missed calls, 8 voicemails. Each one revealed a deeper level of understanding. Panic gave way to fear. Fear gave way to realization. The woman who dismissed me from her wedding was beginning to grasp what she had actually dismissed. The irony was exact. She had spent 26 years assuming my support was permanent. Now she had 30 days to repay it, with professional consequences if she failed. My phone buzzed again, her 16th call. This time, I answered. "Dad, please," she said, her voice thin and exhausted, the hysteria of yesterday replaced by something closer to dread. "We need to talk about this rationally." She swallowed audibly. "This legal document, it cannot be real." I sat down at the kitchen table, easing into the chair as steam rose from the coffee beside me. Outside the window, Spokane looked calm and ordinary for a Sunday afternoon. Families walked their dogs. Kids rode bicycles up and down the sidewalk. People moved through their lives without crisis or panic, unaware of the reckoning unfolding elsewhere. "The letter is entirely legitimate, Sarah," I said evenly, "and the 30-day response period is very real." "But $900,000, she said, her voice thin and strained. "That is impossible. You never told me any of this was a loan." "I never told you it was a gift either," I replied. "You assumed that on your own." In the background, I could hear Daniel's voice, sharp, irritated. Papers shuffled. Footsteps crossed the room as someone paced. "Sarah, answer something for me," I said calmly. "Who exactly do you plan to ask for help with this?" The silence stretched long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then she said quietly, "Family, friends, people who care about me." "I see," I replied. "You have 29 days left. I suggest you start making those calls." I ended the conversation and set my phone to silent. Now she would learn what I already knew, that a debt approaching $1 million revealed very clearly who was willing to help and who would politely step away. The phone lit up repeatedly throughout the afternoon, her name flashing like a distress beacon. I ignored every call. I did not listen to a single voicemail. By evening, the calls stopped. Monday morning arrived wrapped in an unfamiliar quiet. No frantic messages, no desperate voicemails, just silence. I drove to one of our active construction sites where we were breaking ground on a new office complex. Physical work had always cleared my head. The noise of heavy machinery, the smell of fresh soil, the satisfaction of watching something solid take shape. Around 10 o'clock, my foreman Dave walked over. "You seem different today," he said, glancing toward the excavator carving out the foundation. "Everything all right?" "Family matter," I replied. "Sometimes you have to make hard decisions for someone's own good." "Kids?" he asked. "Something like that." My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "I have been calling family and friends. Everyone is shocked by the amount. Please call me." I deleted it without responding. An hour later, another message appeared. "Aunt Margaret says she cannot get involved. She says I need to learn responsibility. What does that even mean?" Then another. "Lisa will not take my calls anymore. Sarah is asking why I never worked. People are acting like I did something wrong." The messages kept coming throughout the afternoon, each one revealing her growing isolation. Her former college roommate was uncomfortable discussing money. Her sorority sisters were stunned by the figures. Her remaining friends were sympathetic but helpless. Daniel was having his own reckoning. His mother had called multiple times demanding explanations. His father wanted an urgent family meeting about reputation and exposure. His brother asked pointed questions about financial disclosure before marriage. By Tuesday, the pattern was unmistakable. Sarah's support system was collapsing under the weight of nearly $1 million in documented dependency. The people who had enjoyed expensive dinners, weekend trips, and effortless generosity were suddenly unavailable when accountability entered the conversation. Wednesday brought a different message. "Dad, Daniel's parents are pressuring him to consider an annulment. They think our marriage was based on financial deception. Please call me so we can fix this." I nearly smiled. Daniel's family, it seemed, recognized reality faster than he did. Thursday's message was shorter. "Nobody will help. Everyone has excuses. Daniel barely speaks to me. His parents want him to talk to a lawyer about protecting his assets. I do not understand how everything changed so fast." 25 days remained. Sarah was learning what financial independence actually meant when you had never built the skills to survive without support. The education was proceeding exactly as intended. Friday morning felt different. No texts, no voicemails. Just an uneasy quiet that made me check my phone twice to ensure it was working. Then the counterattack began. That following Monday, my assistant Rachel knocked on my office door just after 9, holding a printed email. Her expression was tight with concern. "Mr. Reynolds," she said, "we received this inquiry from the Spokane Business Journal. They are asking about personal matters affecting company operations." I read the email carefully. Polite language, professional tone, carefully phrased questions about my judgment, stability, and treatment of family members. Someone had been talking. "Any idea how they got this?" I asked. Rachel hesitated, then handed me her tablet. "There is more." On the screen was a Facebook post already shared hundreds of times, a photo from Sarah's wedding, radiant, beautiful, flawless. Below it, an emotional narrative described a cruel father who had destroyed his daughter's wedding out of spite and was now demanding impossible sums as punishment. The public version of the story had begun. The post portrayed me as an unstable, vindictive father lashing out at his own daughter over imagined slights. Hundreds of comments poured in within hours: outrage, sympathy, disbelief. Several people tagged local business owners I had worked alongside for decades. My phone rang. "James, it's Bob Martinez from Martinez Concrete," said a voice I had known for more than 20 years. "I am seeing some troubling things online. People are saying you are having some kind of breakdown over your daughter's wedding expenses." "Bob, there is documentation that tells a very different story," I replied calmly. "I hope that is true," he said carefully, "because a few folks are already asking questions about your municipal contracts. You know how politics works around here." Within the next hour, 3 more calls came in. Each followed the same pattern: concern wrapped in caution, questions framed politely but aimed squarely at my judgment, my stability, my reliability as a business partner. Sarah and Daniel had not wasted time. It did not take much effort to see the strategy. Daniel's family name carried weight in Spokane's social ecosystem. The Anderson connections ran through country clubs, nonprofit boards, charity committees, and professional associations, where perception mattered more than facts. Those channels were now amplifying Sarah's version of events. Local Facebook groups churned non-stop with distorted retellings. Construction company owner demands $450,000 from daughter after destroying her wedding. Spokane businessman sues his own child over wedding expenses. Each version drifted further from reality, growing more dramatic and more damaging. By noon, I had received 7 calls tied directly to my business. The president of the Spokane Rotary Club asked carefully worded questions about my mindset regarding upcoming community projects. 3 separate contractors mentioned things they had heard that could complicate future collaboration. Sarah and Daniel had chosen their battlefield well. In a city like Spokane, reputation was currency. Undermine someone's standing in the business community, and you threatened their livelihood. They had misjudged one critical detail. I drove home and pulled out the documentation Margaret Richards had helped me assemble. 26 years of financial records, categorized, summarized, verified. Every transfer, every check. Every expense Sarah had, never questioned and rarely acknowledged. Then I started making my own calls. "Margaret," I said when she answered, "I need to schedule a press conference for tomorrow morning. We are going public with the full financial documentation." There was a brief pause. "Are you certain?" she asked. "Once this is public, there is no undoing it." "They made it public already," I replied. "Now the truth gets its turn." The next 6 hours were methodical. I contacted the Spokane Business Journal directly and offered complete financial transparency. I called the reporters who had already been fed Sarah's narrative and told them I had verified documentation that told the full story. Most importantly, I reached out to people who actually knew me: 26 years of business partners, community leaders, professional associates, men and women who had watched me build Reynolds Construction from a single truck into a 60-person operation. People who had seen my dedication to work and family over decades. "Dave," I told my operations manager, "I am notifying everyone on our contractor list. There will be a story tomorrow that sets the record straight." By early evening, everything was in place. The Spokane Business Journal confirmed a feature article. 2 local news stations agreed to cover the press conference. Copies of the documentation were prepared and ready for distribution. Sarah's attack had taken 3 days. My response would take 1 morning. Truth, when presented professionally and supported by evidence, carried far more weight than social media outrage and emotional manipulation. 24 days remained on the legal deadline. By the following afternoon, Sarah would understand that reputation warfare was best attempted by people with substance to defend. Tuesday morning arrived with the precision of a construction schedule. At exactly 9 o'clock, I released 26 years of financial documentation across every platform Sarah and Daniel had used to spread their story. The presentation was disciplined, factual, impossible to dismiss. Bank statements showing $937,000 in payments over 26 years. Categorized spreadsheets detailing education costs, vehicles, housing support, and lifestyle expenses. Photographs of Sarah at every stage of her privileged upbringing, each image paired with the corresponding financial support that made it possible. The headline was simple and direct. Complete transparency, 26 years of parental support documented. Below it, a comprehensive timeline traced her progression from grateful child to entitled adult, with every dollar verified and accounted for. The reaction was immediate. Within an hour, my phone began ringing again, but the tone had changed. "James, I had no idea," said Tom Bradley from Bradley Electrical. "My kids are in college and I spend maybe $15,000 a year total." "You were spending that much every semester," Bob Martinez called back. "I owe you an apology. After seeing those records, I understand exactly what you have been dealing with." That level of entitlement would have broken any parent. The shift online was immediate and unmistakable, like an avalanche reversing direction. The same comment sections that had flooded with sympathy for Sarah's version of events now looked painfully naive when placed beside verified financial records. Screenshots circulated rapidly. Annual college tuition payments of $52,000, receipts for 3 separate luxury vehicles, nearly 3 decades of housing support, clothing, travel, and lifestyle expenses that most families could not imagine sustaining. At 11 o'clock, Margaret Richards called. "James, the response has been remarkable," she said. "The Spokane Business Journal wants to expand this into a feature on financial responsibility and entitlement. You have effectively turned a reputation attack into a community education moment." By noon, Sarah's original Facebook post looked small and desperate against the volume of evidence I had released. People were now sharing my documentation with commentary that cut far deeper than any legal filing ever could. This is what real parental sacrifice looks like. No wonder he finally set boundaries. This was a full-time job, not parenting. The construction community closed ranks immediately. Contractors who had cautiously questioned my stability were now publicly vouching for my integrity and work ethic. The Rotary Club president issued a statement supporting my position. Even the mayor's office released a carefully worded comment emphasizing the importance of financial accountability within families. Dave texted me from the job site. "Boss, everyone is talking about your situation. The crew is 100% behind you. Nobody can believe what Sarah put you through." Local news stations reframed the story as a human interest piece about parental sacrifice and accountability. With documentation this thorough, their job was simple. They presented the facts and let viewers reach their own conclusions. Sarah's attempt to claim victimhood collapsed completely. 26 years of documented financial reality erased emotional manipulation in a single news cycle. The same community that had briefly questioned my judgment was now questioning hers. Daniel's family connections worked against them instead of for them. Their social circle was seeing, in real time, exactly who had been welcomed into their network. The Anderson name was now associated with an attempted smear campaign against a respected businessman who had responded with nothing but verifiable truth. By evening, the narrative had fully inverted. Sarah and Daniel were no longer portrayed as victims of a cruel father. They were seen as entitled adults who had attacked a generous parent the moment he stopped enabling them. Every bank statement told a chapter of the story. Every receipt was proof of love, converted into obligation, and then taken for granted. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Dad, please take down the financial records. People are saying horrible things about us." I deleted the message without replying. 23 days remained. The lesson was almost complete. Early Wednesday morning, just before 7, Daniel's phone rang, jolting both of them awake in the hotel room that now felt claustrophobic with tension, social fallout, and mounting financial pressure. "Daniel," a firm voice said through the speaker, "this is your father. We need to speak immediately." Sarah watched the color drain from Daniel's face as he listened. She could hear only fragments, his tone clipped, defensive. "Yes, I understand the implications. No, I was not aware of the extent of the documentation. This situation is more serious than we believed." The call lasted 12 minutes. When Daniel finally lowered the phone, he stared at it for a long moment before speaking. My family wants me home today. Home, Sarah said quickly. This is temporary. Your father will calm down once. Stop, Daniel interrupted. There was a finality in his voice she had never heard before. My father received calls yesterday from 3 business partners, he continued. They were asking about our family's involvement in a public financial scandal. The country club is full of rumors about the Anderson family being linked to deception. Deception? She said sharply. That is ridiculous. This is just a family argument that got out of control. Daniel began pulling clothes from the drawers, shoving them into his suitcase with short, angry movements. Your father published bank records showing nearly $1 million in support you never disclosed, he said without looking at her. To my family social circle, that looks like misrepresentation at best, and manipulation at worst. Cold panic surged through her chest. You are leaving? She asked. We have been married for less than a week. 6 days, Daniel replied, zipping the suitcase with force. 6 days that have severely damaged my professional reputation and my family's standing. He paused, then added quietly, I have a trust fund, Sarah. Business prospects, a future that depends on maintaining credibility. What about us? She pleaded. What about our vows? Daniel stopped packing and finally looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since the phone rang. What marriage? Daniel's voice came through the phone speaker, sharp and controlled. You brought me into a financial catastrophe without warning. Your father is demanding almost $1 million, and you have no ability to repay it. My family's attorney says I need to protect myself from potential liability. Liability? Sarah said, her voice breaking. I am your wife. To them, you are a financial burden with no assets and massive documented debt, he replied flatly. My family cannot afford to be associated with this level of scandal. Her phone, which had been silent for days, buzzed with a message from Daniel's mother. Sarah, dear, Michael needs to come home today. Family obligations. You understand? The politeness made it worse. Just days earlier, that same woman had praised Sarah's grace and beauty at the wedding. Now she was severing ties with practiced efficiency. Daniel, please, Sarah pleaded. We can work through this. My father is angry, but he loves me. This will calm down. Sarah, look around, Daniel said, gesturing toward her open laptop. This is not calming down. Your father released 26 years of financial records. People are calling you a trust fund adult who never worked a day in her life. He paused. And they are not wrong. That truth landed harder than any insult. Sarah had never held a job longer than a few months. She had never paid her own way. She had never questioned where her comfort came from. I was just being a daughter, she said weakly. Fathers are supposed to support their children. Not to the tune of nearly $1 million over decades without gratitude or contribution, Daniel replied. He zipped his suitcase closed. My family moves in circles where people build something, he continued. They create value. They contribute. What have you ever created besides expenses? Something inside Sarah finally collapsed. Not just her marriage, but the story she had always told herself about who she was. Where am I supposed to go? She asked. I cannot even afford the hotel. My credit cards are maxed out. No one will return my calls. Daniel paused at the door. Call your father, he said. Apologize. Take responsibility. Maybe he will help you figure out how to become an adult. Please do not leave me, she said. I have been alone in this marriage since it began, he replied quietly. Maybe losing everything will teach you what money never did. The door closed behind him. Later that evening, my phone rang. Sarah's name appeared on the screen. I answered. Hello, Sarah. Her voice came through barely above a whisper. Dad, I do not even know where to start. Start with the truth, I said calmly. Do you understand what happened this week? There was a long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was raw. I lost everything. Daniel left this morning. His family cut me off completely. I do not have money to pay for tonight's hotel bill. No one will talk to me. Do you understand why? I asked. That question hung between us. For nearly 3 decades, she had always found someone else to blame. This time, there was nowhere to hide. Yes, she said quietly. Because I treated you like a bank account instead of a person. Because I never appreciated what you sacrificed. Because I was selfish, entitled, cruel. I did not interrupt. I saw the records you published, she continued. Nearly $1 million over my life. I never asked where the money came from. I never thanked you. I never thought about what you gave up to provide it. Her breath hitched. I told you to leave my wedding, a wedding you paid for entirely. What else? I asked. I tried to destroy your reputation when you finally set boundaries, she said. I lied about you publicly. I encouraged Daniel's family to spread rumors about your character. She stopped, waiting. I let the silence do its work. Finally, I spoke. You are telling the truth now, I said. That is a start. But understanding does not erase consequences. There were 22 days left. For the first time in her life, Sarah Reynolds Anderson was facing reality without protection, excuses, or someone else paying the cost. Saying those things out loud felt like draining poison from a wound that had been festering for years. Every admission burned, but the pain was clean, honest. I became everything people hate about spoiled children who never grow up, I said quietly. There was a pause on the line. Sarah, my father said, his voice softening in a way I had not heard in a long time. Do you remember when you were 8, after your mother died? You used to hug me every night and tell me I was the best dad in the world. I remember, I said, my throat tight. I wanted to give you everything because I loved you, he continued. But somewhere along the way, giving you everything became the reason you stopped loving me back. I never stopped loving you, Dad, I said quickly. I just stopped showing it. I stopped being grateful. I stopped being your daughter and turned into a consumer. I took a shaky breath. What do you want from me now? The question terrified me because I knew it was not really about money. It was about whether there was anything left to rebuild between us. I want to earn your respect, I said slowly. I want to become the daughter you deserve. I want to learn how to be an adult who contributes instead of just taking. My vision blurred, and I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. But first, I need help surviving long enough to prove I can change. What kind of help? He asked. I need enough money to stay in the hotel for one more week while I find a job, I said. Any job. I need a chance to prove I can support myself. Sarah, he said firmly, if I help you this time, there will be conditions. Anything, I said without hesitation. You will find employment within 2 weeks, he said. I do not care if you are cleaning offices or waiting tables. Pride is a luxury you can no longer afford. I understand. No financial requests for 6 months. You live only on what you earn. Yes. We will talk once a week, he continued. But those conversations will be between 2 adults, not a parent and a dependent child. I want that, I said. I want to earn the right to be your daughter again. There was another pause. I am going to transfer $1,000 to your account, he said. That will cover this hotel for 1 week and basic groceries. After that, you are on your own. Dad, thank you, I said, my voice breaking. I know I do not deserve. You are right, he interrupted calmly. You do not deserve it. But everyone deserves one chance to grow up, even at 28. His voice carried both firmness and something else, hope. I have always loved you, he said. Now I want to see if I can respect you too. I will not let you down, I said. Not again. We will see, he replied. I love you, sweetheart. The call ended. For the first time in over a week, I felt something other than panic and despair. Not relief exactly, but possibility. The chance to become someone worth respecting. I had 21 days left to prove I could change, a lifetime to earn back what I had thrown away. I opened my laptop and started searching for jobs in Spokane. Every entry-level listing looked intimidating to someone who had never truly worked for anything. But intimidating was better than impossible. For the first time in my life, I was going to earn something myself. The education was finally beginning.